With the biggest story of the day, and that is the news that DeWanna Bonner is no longer with the Indiana Fever. It was reported last night that DeWanna Bonner had no intentions on returning to the Indiana Fever, and then the news broke today that the Indiana Fever had indeed.
In a shocking act of treachery that rocked the WNBA, Dana Bonner recently left Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever. However, her ambitious strategy to pressure her way onto a different squad has completely failed. Now the entire league has placed her on a blacklist. Her reputation is in ruins, and she has lost a fortune. This is the tale of how in just a few short weeks a revered veteran wrecked her own legacy and the immediate karma that ensued.
She said, "I want to sincerely thank the Indiana Fever for the opportunity to be part of the Fever franchise. Despite our shared goals and excitement heading into the season, I felt the fit did not work out, and I appreciate the organization's willingness to grant my request to move on, particularly at this point in my career. I wish the Fever great success as they continue to build around this dynamic group."
The press release that broke the news was sanitized and corporate in tone. The Indiana Fever declared that Dana Bonner's request for a contract divorce had been approved. In her formal statement, Bonner briefly stated that she thought the fit did not work out despite their similar aims and graciously thanked the organization for the opportunity as the youthful group continued to develop. She wished them well. At first glance, it appeared to be a cordial and professional separation. However, a much darker and more turbulent story was concealed below that kind exterior.
If another team claims her off the waivers, she gets her full salary. She gets her full salary if another team claims her off the waivers.
Behind the well-chosen remarks, a respected veteran was deliberately leaving her club in the middle of the season, causing chaos in a locker room that desperately needed stability. It wasn't a fit problem. A team consisting of young, naive players who had turned to her for direction was purposefully left to deal with the immense, suffocating public attention surrounding Caitlin Clark all by themselves.
It makes DeWanna Bonner look really, really bad. It makes DB look really, really bad. And it's the fact that she has told all other teams, other than the Mercury, don't sign her.
In the WNBA, players are placed on waivers when their contracts expire. This implies that Dana Bonner and her full guaranteed $200,000 pay for the season might have been claimed by any of the other 11 clubs in the league for 48 hours. It should have been obvious that a three-time All-Star with championship experience would be selected for any team seeking veteran depth. It was practically a free asset, a successful scorer who may have mentored a younger squad or assisted a contender. The clock began to tick, yet there was a deafening stillness throughout the league once the 48-hour deadline expired.
And look, I understand that's where she wants to go. Why didn't she go there in the summer? We know why, because she couldn't have got her max contract. And by the way, people are like, oh, they can give her the minimum. No, they can't. The Phoenix Mercury can give her a prorated $80,000 salary for the rest of the year. So she's only going to lose about 30K-ish. And she's going to lose about 40, 50K. Whereas they would have been only able to sign her earlier on. Well, they would only be able to sign her for nothing. Because again, we can't forget as well, the Phoenix Mercury cut Sevgi Uzun. The Phoenix Mercury have a bunch of players signed on hardships and a bunch of players that they can cut. Like, they literally cap space magicked up. And as soon as cap space magics up for the India or for the Phoenix Mercury,
every franchise in the WNBA considered the circumstances and concluded she wasn't worth the bother, even if it meant giving up a franchise. Not a single team filed a claim. Any impression that this was a cordial breakup was destroyed in this instant. This was a huge red flag that revealed how poisonous her departure was. A league-wide rejection. The startling explanation for the league's silence started to surface from behind the scenes as the waiver process came to an end. According to reports, Bonner was planning a blatant power move. She was aggressively contacting other clubs and warning them not to claim her off waivers. According to insiders, she was attempting to control the entire system in order to compel her to go to the Phoenix Mercury. This move, sheer chutzpah, is astounding. Superstars in their prime, such as Jimmy Butler, have faced harsh criticism for attempting to force their way out of unfavorable circumstances. However, the 36-year-old player, who is obviously nearing the end of her career, was acting like a league MVP despite having resigned on a legally bound contract. She was acting like a free agent and asking to select and choose her next team. She desired both outcomes: to leave her current position while yet having total control over her next employment. However, there was a fatal flaw in her master plan that would reveal the idiocy of her wager and make her ideal vacation spot into a possible nightmare. According to reports, the Phoenix Mercury, the team she had strained relations with and alienated the rest of the league to join, were reluctant to sign her. According to sources, the Phoenix front management was rather worried about signing a player who had just shown a startling propensity to leave her team when things were rough, with a youthful, hungry group of players that had fully committed to the system and were outperforming the Mercury were developing a good rapport for a veteran who recently demonstrated that she couldn't be relied upon in times of crisis. Why would they risk upsetting that delicate ecosystem? Bonner had left Indiana believing that Phoenix would be a safe place to land, only to discover that the far shore wasn't nearly as hospitable as she had conceitedly thought. In addition to harming her reputation, this astounding blunder had a financial cost. Dana Bonner automatically forfeited the remaining $200,000 of her guaranteed contract with the Indiana Fever by passing waivers unclaimed. She signed a prorated veteran minimum contract with Phoenix for the remainder of the season, when she finally and unavoidably she would make about $80,000 from that agreement. The tragic reality is revealed by simple math. She willingly turned down more than $120,000. This was not a wise business move, because she believed her own hype and imagined she could dictate conditions to the entire league. She suffered a severe financial wound that she caused herself. She lost a six figure because of her hubris and her botched power move. She made a disastrous error that, in the view of league executives and supporters, made her appear utterly self-centered and horribly foolish. However, the harm extended beyond her reputation and bank account. Caitlin Clark, the person who most needed her veteran presence, was experiencing the true human fallout in early practices and preseason games. After joining the Fever, Banner was publicly positioned as the seasoned, knowledgeable leader who would guide the rookie sensation through the unheard-of turbulence of her maiden professional season. Clearly eager to play with her, Clark went above and beyond to establish a rapport and pick up tips from the seasoned player. Rather than offering that advice, Bonner demonstrated to her and the rest of the young roster that you can simply give up and go when the going gets rough. It was an outright act of professional desertion. For the first time in her illustrious career, a respected, experienced colleague effectively told Caitlin Clark that she didn't want to play with her. That's not being a leader. The league's top player and her club are in disarray as a result of this profound betrayal of trust. This raises the most difficult and contentious query of all: was this unexpected action premeditated from the beginning? It's difficult to overlook the extremely dubious timing of everything in order to take advantage of the unparalleled media attention and focus that came with playing with Caitlin Clark. Bonner first inked a lucrative, high-profile contract with Indiana. She took advantage of the Caitlin Clark effect by playing in packed arenas and posing for magazine covers for weeks. Then, just as the Phoenix Mercury were about to sign a player of her quality after miraculously creating enough salary cap room, Bonner abruptly decided that the fit in Indiana was no longer appropriate. It seems less like an impulsive choice and more like a ruthless, planned conspiracy to take advantage of the publicity and financial gain from Indiana Fever, then planned a spectacular departure the moment your chosen location is prepared to receive you. If that's the case, treating a team, its players, and its supporters in such a way is not just unprofessional, but also incredibly cynical and dishonest. Perhaps what wasn't stated rather than what was said is the most compelling evidence of Bonner's wrongdoing. There's an unspoken code in professional athletics. Players frequently band together. It's common to hear other athletes, particularly veterans, speak up in support of an athlete who feels they've been treated unfairly or has a disagreement with a team. However, there was nothing once Bonner left the players and the league sank into a deafening hush. Nobody stood up for her. Nobody agreed with her choice. This lack of assistance says a lot. The fact that her peers and other union members did not view this as a morally upright stance in favor of player empowerment is evident from this. They recognized it for what it was: a self-centered behavior that betrayed her teammates' confidence and the sport's professionalism. Even people who are aware of the demands of the game couldn't find an excuse for her leaving her squad, as seen by the hushed condemnation in addition to the personal turmoil. Bonner's behavior has put the WNBA as a whole in peril. Her midseason exit creates a disastrous precedent that jeopardizes the integrity of player contracts themselves. What's to stop other disgruntled players from quitting their teams and manipulating their way to a new one? If a respected veteran can do it with little to no instant repercussions from the league, this might have a cascading effect, enabling players to back out of agreements anytime they're unhappy, transforming contracts into pointless recommendations. For small market clubs like Indiana, who depend on contracts to assemble steady lineups and are unable to match the glitz of larger cities, this is particularly detrimental. It sends a terrible message about the stability of the WNBA to have one of its veterans act in such an unprofessional manner during a time when the league is expanding rapidly and vying for public acceptance. It conveys the idea of a league where mayhem could break out at any time, which may turn off both spectators and possible investors. Dana Bonner eventually moved to Phoenix, as she had wanted to, but at what price? She destroyed her name in the league, lost more than $100,000 in pay, and will go down in history as the player who left the Indiana Fever for Caitlin Clark rather than as a champion or a revered veteran. Her behavior has created a risky precedent by implying that contracts are only recommendations and that a player's personal desires can always take precedence over their professional
commitments. In
a time when players are empowered, we frequently commend athletes for taking charge of their own careers. However, Dana Bonner's story makes us all consider the boundaries between entitlement and empowerment, between standing up for what you believe in and just breaking your word. She might have simply discovered that line, and by blatantly crossing it, she may have irreparably and permanently damaged her own reputation.